What are we discussing on today's Locked On Diamondbacks podcast? Well, it's crossover time with Ben Kaspick of Locked On Giants to give way too early NL West predictions of how we think the division is going to shake up in 2024.
You are Locked On Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Listening to who? Always charismatic host of this podcast, Miller Thomas. I'm a multimedia journalist and I'm a graphic designer. So please go check out my website, millerthomas24.myportfolio.com to see all my latest work. Thank you for making Locked On Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free and available on all platforms. So please continue to tell your friends. And one of those platforms is YouTube. So please hit subscribe to Locked On Diamondbacks on YouTube. But now it's crossover time with Ben Kaspick of Locked On Giants. The last two pods have been with Ben. I swear to you, this is the last pod we have with Ben for at least, the foreseeable future. He will definitely be a crossover guest in the future. But for the rest of this week and the next couple of weeks, no more Ben Kaspick podcast. This is the last one. So let's get right into it. But Ben, we talked a lot about the offseason so far in today's podcast. I want to ask you, with the Dodgers and the D-backs and the Giants, who we think is going to take the NL West crown in 2024 and what other moves you think your team still might need to make this offseason to potentially win the NL West next season. And if you think the D-backs or the Giants might win the NL West next year, why not go to FanDuel Sportsbook and place a little futures bet down, because the NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers could get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's it. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so easy to use. There's so many different ways to bet, like live same game parlays, find bets in the new Explore tab, make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, and more. My favorite thing to do is the same game parlay. Whenever the Lakers are playing a mediocre or below 500 team, I take Anthony Davis over in points, AD over in rebounds, and the Lakers money line. Now, let me tell you, that third leg of the parlay hasn't been hitting as recently, but when it does, I love seeing money go into my pocket. And if you want the same feeling, go visit FanDuel.com/lockedon, and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. And we are back here with Ben Kaspick of Locked On Giants, wrapping up the podcast. One more segment to go. And I want to talk about the NL West, Ben, because, the Dodgers have spent some money this offseason. The D-backs, we see the Giants, they signed the most expensive foreign player ever, brought in former D-back friend Robbie Ray. How are you feeling about the NL West right now? How do you like how it's going to shake up? Do you have any strong predictions for what the division might be next year? Do you think the Padres potentially could be a sneaky under the radar team? What's your feeling right now in the NL West?
Well, you mentioned earlier the Dodgers. You can't wait for the discourse once they win 130 games and then get swept in the first round or whatever. So I'm with you on that. I think you'd have to be taking crazy pills not to pick the Dodgers to win the NL West. And we've been doing this for several years now, and I feel like that's been the story pretty much every year, is when we do our roundtable with the other hosts of the division. It's always been the Dodgers, except, they're actually, last year, I take it back, there were quite a few Padres picks, and just goes to show how unpredictable this game is. And so as it stands now, I think the Dodgers are far and away the top team in the division. It's not remotely close. The Padres are an interesting team because they're subtracting, they had all these stars and people thought they would compete with the Dodgers, but they traded Juan Soto, and Blake Snell is a free agent. Josh Hader is a free agent. And Darvish is like 38 years old all of a sudden. And so, and he signed for like 1 million more years, which is crazy. Padres could be in trouble. I mean, they're a team that definitely could have some problems down the road. And I did say that actually going into last year. But, and then you've got, I think again, like once again, the D-backs and the Giants kind of live in a similar realm. They're not like similar teams in the way they play, and the style of play. But hey, look, like you said, the D-backs won 84 games, the Giants won 79. It's not like there was a huge difference there.
I guess that's true.
And the Giants fell apart in the last 2 weeks. Like I don't know if you remember, but the Giants held on to a playoff spot for. I mean, the D-backs fell apart too in the middle of the season.
We did. Yeah, we did for
big
a while
time.
there.
Yeah, we around the All-Star break.
Yeah, we were like one of the worst teams in baseball for like a 6-week stretch there.
Yeah. And it was looking like, okay, like D-backs went down, Giants were coming up, and unfortunately the season continued a little bit longer than I would have liked. I would have liked to stop the count at around 140 games, but instead we played 162, and things went real south for the Giants. D-backs got hot. But I just continue to feel like both of our teams, I don't know, the D-backs probably, I think they look like an above 500 team and a wild card contender, but I don't see them as like a 95 win team, most likely, but somewhere in that 84 to 90 or 88. I don't know. I'm just throwing out numbers. They're pretty good. They're pretty good. And young players getting better, which is part of it with them. With the Giants, I think they have work to do. Like, I don't, if they're done now, then I would definitely have them below the D-backs, and it's the Padres are like this total enigma to me because they had Soto, they had Hader, they had Snell winning the Cy Young Award, and they still were an 82-80 team. They won 3 more games than the Giants. Like, it kind of doesn't make sense. And then you lose all those players, but I think they massively underperformed. Like, their record in 1-run games was crazy bad. Their record in extra innings was insanely bad. And so I anticipate just kind of natural improvement for them just by kind of, if they were to like replay the season, I feel like they win like 10 more games. Like they just had a weird season with all the talent they had, but then they lose a lot of guys, and I don't know if they're done yet. And so as it stands now, Dodgers, I mean, it might be time to pick the D-backs at second place for me.
Might be time, yeah. It better
and
be
it might,
time, yeah.
I mean, they did go to the World Series after all.
Yeah.
But hey, I think the Giants are not done, and I would not be surprised if they go out and sign another player or two for $100+ million this offseason. Like the top 4, the Boris 4, Snell, Montgomery, Matt Chapman, Cody Bellinger. I see them getting at least one of those guys. And we can go back and roll the tape if I'm wrong and call me out on it, but I still think that they need to do that in order to stay competitive here. Otherwise, they're looking like, depending on how the Padres do, a 4th place team. And I think we know poor Paul Holden and his Rockies are going to project in last.
Yeah.
So, but with that being said, I want to hear what you have to say about all that, including on the Giants and the Padres and your D-backs.
You will hear my thoughts, but first, I want to talk to you guys about FanDuel, because if you think the D-backs are going to take the NL West in 2024, then why not place a little futures bet down on FanDuel Sportsbook, because the NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place just a $5 bet. I'm going to say it one more time, $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so easy to use, and there's so many different ways to bet, like live same game parlays, find bets in the new Explore tab, make a parlay in the Parlay Hub. My favorite thing to do is the same game parlay. I like to take AD over in points, AD over in rebounds, and the Lakers money line. Now, that third leg of the parlay, the Lakers money line, hasn't been hitting too much since the Lakers, raised their in-season tournament banner. But nonetheless, when it does hit, it brings a big smile to my face. And if you want a smile on your face, then visit fanduel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. After the holidays, we could all use a little extra cash in our pockets, especially after all the gift giving. We still need to buy the everyday things we need. Make sure you're getting cash back on all of your everyday purchases with Ibotta. Ibotta is a free app that gives you the most cash back every time you shop on hundreds of items from groceries to beauty supplies to toys, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns $145 per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, buy that flight you've been eyeing, that game you're dying to go to, or that fancy dinner you've been craving. Other apps give you points that don't amount to much. With Ibotta, just add your offers in the app, upload your receipt, and get a real cash that you can cash out to your bank, PayPal, or gift cards. Join the over 50 million savers and earn cash back every time you shop from over 2,700 brands and retailers. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKEDONMLB when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back and use code LOCKEDONMLB. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or Apple App Store and use code LOCKEDONMLB. Yeah, I mean, Dodgers will give them the division for now. I mean, on paper, they're going to be loaded. D-backs, I think we got to lock them into number 2. Coming off the World Series appearance, address the third base, brought back Gurriel, signed Erod to number 3. And honestly, if we get one more bat, because Mike Hazen's talked about adding one more bat, one more DH, and JD Martinez has been linked all over to the D-backs. Like, if we get him, I think that's a cherry on top to the offseason. You got your rotation locked in 1 through 4. Your lineup's going to have like Carroll, Marte, Walker, Suarez, maybe JD, maybe you're going to have Moreno in there. Like, I think they're legit could be like 7 deep. So I really do like this D-backs team a lot, but I don't need us to win 95 games, and they probably won't. Like, I just want to be the Philadelphia Phillies, win 85 to 88 games, and then just be built for the postseason, because I think this D-backs team is built more for the playoffs than they are for the regular season, which I think is all that matters. Like, you could go out there and win 115 games in the regular season, but if you flame out like the Braves or Dodgers in the postseason, like, no one is going to remember the 162 game marathon that you had to go through. All they're going to remember is the heartbreak at the end of the season. So I would much rather just be 88 wins and just get into the dance and then see what happens from there. The Giants, I mean, I definitely think they need to add a couple of those players that you talked about. For me, it just depends on how that young talent progresses next season, because I like Logan Webb. I like a couple other players in their lineup, but if the young talent doesn't improve, if they don't continue to develop, like, it doesn't really matter who you sign in the offseason, because you need those foundational pieces that you guys develop internally to take you to the next level. So right now, the Giants, I wouldn't say I love them on paper, but I don't think they're going to be bad, because I never like the Giants on paper, and then they're always a 500 team or better. So they will probably be better than my expectations level for them heading to the season. And the Padres, I think, are the biggest wild card potentially heading to next season, because if they're bad by the trade deadline, like, that could be a full tear down rebuild where it's like the only guy you're keeping is Tatis, and who knows about everyone else on that roster. Like, you might even look at Manny Machado trades. You might look at Bogarts and Darvish and Musgrove. Like, I don't know. Like, it could get really dangerous for that Padres situation, because reports were coming out the end of this past season that they were taking out loans just to meet the payroll and stuff like that. So, like, the way that they built this thing has been so crazy, like giving the money to Bogarts instead of re-signing Juan Soto, trading all that for Juan Soto just to trade him once again. Like, the Padres are kind of a mess right now. And of course, the Rockies. I mean, Nolan Jones, he's good. They got a couple of interesting young guys. Like, Nolan Jones actually a lot better than I realized. I had a crossover with Paul Holden like a month ago, and he put me on to Nolan Jones. I looked at those numbers. I was like, damn, all right, this guy might be a legit stud that they have here. But the rest of that roster, I don't know. So I definitely have Dodgers number 1, D-backs number 2 as a playoff wild card contender, like you said. And then the Giants, like, you never know. They could be sneaky. I just think the NL is actually kind of deep. When you look at the Braves, the Marlins are sneaky. The Phillies are, of course, going to be there. The Central, I mean, that's going to be pretty weak. But the NOS will probably send at least 2 teams to the postseason. And maybe if the Giants are lucky, maybe they could be that 3rd team that gets sent to the playoffs. How do you feel about that? You like that?
I mean, it could be 4, right? Because you get the division winner and then you get 3 wild card teams. But yeah, I don't see that happening because, like you said, the Phillies and I feel like
the NL has to send 2.
I would think so. The Marlins, they had crazy, like they're kind of the inverse Padres last year, where they had an extremely good record in 1-run games, and I believe they also had a negative run differential.
And they're kind of a frustrating team this offseason. Just real quick, because it's like there's talks like they're out on Jorge Soler, who was a monster for them last year. And it's like we know offense is like the only thing that they need because they're like 6-7 deep in that rotation with like dudes under 25, but yet they don't want to spend money on players who were good for them this past year. Like I just don't understand that philosophy. I don't understand firing their executive, who I thought was the executive of the year last year, Kim. So I don't know what's going on in Marlins world right now.
Yeah, that's the thing about the Marlins is they always tend to kind of shoot themselves in the foot even when things are going well. Like historically, they've put together, they've like finally built good teams, and then this isn't what they've done now. But then they like trade away a bunch of guys, and so I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of took a step back. But I feel like the Mets. I mean, you can't sleep on the Mets either with their. Well, they did trade away like a lot of guys, but still, I feel like you can't totally throw them out as a team that could. They've still got some talent. You know, they got Lindor, Pete Alonso. Starting rotation kind of makes me scratch my head a little bit after you lose Scherzer and Verlander, but yeah, I mean, for the Giants, they basically want. That's a great point, by the way, about the young talent. Like that is 100% right that they need. And the thing is, they've got some guys. Like they've got some guys who have arrived in the major leagues who are pretty high end prospects. Probably, you know, not household names, but guys who debuted in the major leagues this year. We're talking like 21-year-olds who have really high upside, like Kyle Harrison.
Who's the guy we should like? Who's the guy that we should be on the lookout for? Ben and I will wrap up the pod, but first, I want to talk to you guys about the Jace case because I know we come to sports to escape from some of the crazy realities of real life. But can we just talk for a minute about preparing for real life? According to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin right in the middle of the worst flu season in over a decade. This is scary. I can't imagine a more helpless feeling than if a significant other got sick while a supply chain issue kept them from the life-saving medication they needed. Thankfully, we'll be okay because of Jace Medical. The Jace case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, sinuses, skin infections, among others. This stuff could happen to any of us. Visit jacemedical.com and complete your physician encounter. It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important to be prepared than today. Go to jacemedical.com, use off code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order.
I'm saying Kyle Harrison. This is a starting pitcher, left-handed pitcher, kind of like, I mean, I don't want to throw unfair comps out there, but like kind of like Carlos Rodon, Chris Sale type mold, where you're talking power lefty, like overpowering fastball, maybe a little Robbie Ray in him with some command being like a problem at times for him. But if he can, you know, just throw strikes, he can be completely dominant. And he's 21 years old. He may be 22 at this point, but he has the potential to, and they actually have a lot of arms, probably not of that same like frontline starter potential, but like, you know, good pitcher. Like look up, you know, Tristan Beck kind of quietly had some pretty good numbers for them and just performed well. If you just watched him pitch, he pitched well. And then you've got like a 21 or 22-year-old Luis Matos, who a lot of people had as like a top 15 prospect by the time he arrived. If you look at his AAA numbers, they're just off the charts. And Marco Luciano. Like, there's actually quite a few guys, and Patrick Bailey. I guess he's not really a rookie anymore, but he became like a total stud defensively. But Kyle Harrison is the guy to watch. And hey, Jung-Hoo Lee is also a rookie, so they've got several. This is Maria Guardado of MLB.com covers the Giants. She said, like a hot take was like a Giant winning Rookie of the Year this year, and I think that's a pretty solid like hot take because they've got some guys, and like you said, I think that is the key for them. If one or two of those guys break through and become really good players, hopefully even more than that. Like Logan Webb kind of came out of nowhere, by the way, to become like one of the best pitchers in the game. Not a lot of people knew who he was either before they developed him into what he is now. But look out for Kyle Harrison. He'll probably be in that opening day rotation. He's nasty. Just when he's on, he looks like untouchable, and he's super young. So.
Yeah, and honestly, for the Giants, like what I kind of want them to do, because I don't know if signing like one big time free agent like Blake Snell is going to like dramatically increase their chances of move the needle for the World Series. Like I wouldn't mind if you guys like took a year off next year and was like, let's just play all the young talent we have and just figure out who are the core pieces that we have here. Like Robbie Ray, like he's coming back from Tommy John. We'll know how good he's going to be in the first half. Alex Cobb might miss the first couple months. Like let's lean all the way into the young talent. Let's bring up all our top 100 guys. Maybe not all of them, but let's actually figure out who are the guys that we should build around going forward. Who are the young pieces that are actual foundational championship pieces that we could see here long-term over the next few years, because obviously the Giants do need to go out there and sign some of these, better free agents. But I first want to decide who are the core pieces that we have to build around. So maybe the Giants just look at next year as a development year, and then 2025 is where it's like, all right, we like those 4 or 5 guys that we produce out of our system. Now let's go add around them and then try to go compete in 2025 and 2026.
Problem is the fans I don't think the fans have the patience for that, but you may be right. Like it may be,
it's too long for all that.
And here the good news is that I think they make it a priority. They're making it a priority to incorporate these players. And we saw a lot of them last year, and they went through some struggles. And that was part of why they kind of fell apart, was because some of these guys struggled at times. But I think you will see a lot of, remember the names, Kyle Harrison, Luis Matos, right, Marco Luciano. Like those are some high end prospects. If you look at previous top 100 lists.
Oh, I'm looking, man. These are all like top 75, top 30 prospects at one point in their career.
Like
so
Marco Luciano was at one point like consensus top 10, and he kind of fell off. He's had some injuries and stuff. He was, if you look back a couple of years, he was top 10. And Kyle Harrison currently top 20. Certain, Fangraphs has Matos top 20, and then Patrick Bailey becoming what he became. So we'll see, but I think they will give those guys a shot to play this year. And trading Mitch Haniger, it kind of opens up an outfield spot that was crowded, and maybe that allows you to give more playing time to an outfielder like Matos. And currently, Brandon Crawford is gone. I mean, he's a free agent. And so you're looking at right now Luciano as your starting shortstop. And so expect the Giants to look a little different, a little younger, a little more kind of, high ceiling, low floor with some guys in some certain spots where you don't know what you're going to get, but there's the potential for really good production, potentially.
Yeah. Peterson's a free agent too. Is Conforto still under contract?
Yeah, one more year.
Yeah, so I'll just trade the Confortos. Is JD Davis still under contract?
Yep. But
so I'll just
they need someone to platoon at first with Wade, and Wilmer Flores can DH, and that would open up third base, and short is also open. So they've got some flexibility to kind of mix in the young guys.
Yeah, get those veterans.
Get them out of here.
I want to see all young guys.
They're solid, but man, you're right. They need better impact, and it's got to come like young players make. We saw it. The championship era for the Giants was built around young, homegrown talent. Posey, Lincecum, Kane, Bumgarner, Sandoval. Like
Mad
that's
Bum.
what. Yes, your favorite. I mean, when we got the best of them, you got the worst of them. But
Yeah.
yes, but I mean,
I'm actually
Posey, come
upset.
on, you know.
I'm actually hurt with the numbers he put up in Arizona, because when he gets on the Hall of Fame ballot, you're gonna be like, damn, he was kind of bad once he hit the age of 30, because his numbers are just so bad the last 4 years of Arizona. Like, it's gonna kind of hurt his Hall of Fame candidacy, because I do
Oh
think
yeah,
he
totally.
potentially has a chance to make it. But Ben Kaspick, we just talked. The listeners won't know this because this episode will be broken up into multiple podcasts probably. But we just talked for well over an hour, a whole bunch on Robbie Ray and the Giants offseason, the Dodgers spending, whether it's a problem or not. Please, Ben, where can the listeners find you on social media?
On X, I guess we're calling it now, at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. I'm also on Instagram. I don't know if anyone do you plug your personal Instagram, Millard? Or do you plug the like show Instagram?
I plug my personal Twitter and then the show Instagram and show Twitter.
You mean your X?
Yeah, X, sure. I will never call it X. It will be Twitter for me until the day.
But look at the logo underneath our names on YouTube. It's an X.
I'm gonna change it myself. I'm going.
I know it's so stupid. Yeah. Anyway, at Ben Kaspick, the show account, as well as at LO_SF Giants. And likewise, where can they find you?
At Career Thomas 24 for my personal account. Locked On Diamondbacks Twitter and Instagram. Follow Locked On Diamondbacks on YouTube. Follow Locked On Giants on YouTube, and we're of course on all your streaming platforms. Ben Kaspick of Locked On Giants, a mega crossover, talking a whole bunch about the offseason. And maybe we'll talk one more time before the season starts for a little preview. I mean, we definitely got to do that round table. We're going to do that. I'm going to bring a whole lot of heat for Jeff Snyder of the Locked On LA Dodgers. Oh my God. He is getting lit up, that round table.
Oh, I cannot wait.
So
he's going to be defensive. He's going to be all this, that, and the other, but he just rail into him, please.
I can't wait. Yeah, he'll probably just shrug it off, to be honest. It's okay. We'll do it again to them next season.
How they cope. Copium.
Yeah. Copium. Go smoke some more copium if you need it. That's Ben Kaspick of Locked On Giants. I'm Millard Thomas of Locked On Diamondbacks. Until next time, doses.